YouTube, hello, my name is John. I am starting a channel. Gonna go over some basic woodworking projects, home projects, kind of gonna touch on a lot of things, mostly all woodworking based. My friend Mason, shout out Mason George Motorcycles, convinced me to start a channel. Gonna kind of go over some things. First off, the lovely assistant you see over there is my dog Layla. She is a lazy lump that will be around the shop. Right now I'm currently working out of the basement. I have a woodworking shop that I'm just wrapping up, but we have not moved in there yet. As a special thanks for getting me motivated to finally do this. As you can see right now, I'm just using my cell phone to do these videos. I am going to be making a custom routed sign for my friend. It is going to be made out of a lovely piece of Osage orange here in Northeast Ohio. There's a couple of them in my yard. One of them fell down a couple years ago. I got it dried out, kind of milled it into a couple different little pieces. But I'm going to go about showing you how to take a simple picture on a piece of paper, get it stenciled on the wood, and go about routering it onto this piece. Along the way, love some comments. I'm sure people have better ways to do it, easier ways to do it. Hopefully I'll wear all my safety equipment, do everything right, but we'll go over that later. So let's get started. All right, first things first, with this piece of wood, I still have to do some flattening. I still have some planing marks from when I was starting to flatten this. Anytime I'm figuring out how I want to do a piece, I kind of sometimes just use the eye test, but sometimes I actually take a tape. As you can see, I got some lines laid out across here, side to side. I kind of started trying to get like a center point for me to get everything lined up here. I'm going to go ahead and get this masked off, or going to lay some masking tape on it. Helps the router slide on it. I like to do it that way. Helps them chip out, but also just so I'm not putting a bunch of marks on this, and we'll kind of go from there. Also along the way, I figure I'll make some recommendations. A lot of times when I'm doing my projects, I have a lot of different kinds of tape. Kind of keep a lot on hand. It's kind of whatever I get a hand on. I got a great deal on some of this frog tape. Also, it depends on what I'm working on. In this case, my stencil is fairly light colored. The green tape, it shows up a little better on that versus like the Scotch blue tape. It'll be a little harder to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this up with this. All right, got some tape laid down. Still got my line showing on the edge so that I can center my paper. I'm gonna get that paper laid on here, and using some real cutting edge technology here, I'm gonna put some carbon paper underneath it so I can basically trace it out, transfer it onto this tape, and then we're gonna get the party started with some routering. In case anyone's unfamiliar with it, this is black carbon paper. Get the biggest amount you can if you're going to use it. I end up using this stuff all the time, but you'll end up putting the paper down like this on your project. I'm going to probably have to use 2 sheets. I'm going to side by side them. Put the paper, the project I'm doing, right over top of this. Tape it down, trace it all out, and then presto changeo, it'll be on this green tape, and we'll be ready to router. All right, getting close. Just kind of wanted to go over how I positioned this before I finished taping it off. I kind of took the width of the board, made a center mark, kind of rough taped each side across, kind of got an idea on each end, and I tweaked it a little bit just to pass the eyeball test. But so I'm using the picture, I went across the top of the lettering here, kind of used the center of this. In his case, he's got his logo and there's this tree. I'm using the center here. I'm going to finish taping this down, and then like I said, I'm going to use a pencil, go over all the edges of this so it transfers over. Layla's still sleeping. Now for the really boring part. Usually when I have a chair for this one, pick a spot and start going to town. All right, that took a little bit, but like I said, I know there's a lot better ways, probably quicker ways. Like if you own a $40,000 laser cutting machine, it's just a computer program and it would do all the work for you, but this is the fun way. So that's all traced out. I am going to go ahead and pull this up, see how this looks, and we'll go from there. And boom. That's stenciled onto the wood. We'll be ready to router that. Save this in case I need it for something else. But yeah, this is where we're going to get into the tricky part, though, is how we're going to do this. We're going to have to figure out which bits we're going to use. I'm going to kind of want nice clean edges going around this. What I'm ultimately going to do is probably, after I router it out, paint this in probably black, sand the top back down. Beautimous. All right, I'm going to wait to probably router this till tomorrow, since it's already almost 10:30. But I want to go over with you guys a little bit what I'm going to probably use. I've had really good luck with this white side drill bit. It's a really sharp point. But the problem is, as you can see with these, is it's still going to be like a V cut. And like I said, I want a nice clean edge. So more than likely, I'm going to have to use like a straight type bit like this. Kind of work the edges, go from there. We're going to be using a Dewalt 2-horse plunge router. Drop that in, make our cuts. That plunge router I got. If you guys don't frequent a pawn shop, you should. It's where I get most of my best deals. But yeah, like I said, tomorrow we're going to get started probably on this. Maybe tonight if I get froggy, but we'll see. All right, day 2. I'm going to kind of go over a couple of little tech tips I think might help out the project. So to reiterate, we got this board all prepped and ready to go. Little tech tip is, if you have it, find a sample piece similar if you can. This is Osage orange. This is another chunk of Osage orange I have laying around. Test it out, especially when you're using a router. Check your depths, check the size of your marks, check everything. Just that way, once you start cutting into it, especially this, where you're going to have a ton of work, you don't want to all of a sudden do one thing a little too deep and waste your time. First bit we're going to test out, it's a 1/8 inch double flute straight bit, as you can see in the router there. And the next bit is going to be this carving one I was talking about the other day. It is very sharp, very, very sharp. So we're going to test that out. We're going to draw a couple lines, test this out on this board before we start actually working on our main piece. All right, next tech tip. This is where you want to set yourself up where your actual bit and your stopper are hitting at the exact same time. Adjust your things so it's 0. So that way, if you decide you want a 1/8 inch depth, turn it to an 1/8 inch, and it'll raise this stopper, and your bit will actually just be automatically going in an 1/8 inch. Next tech tip, don't be a tough guy. Safety gear, mask, glasses, hearing protection. You only get one set of each. Let's do it. All right, I just did the border. After we get the outline set, then we can go out, clean this up afterwards. I gotta blow this out, see how it looks. All right, I'm pretty happy with that depth. I think I'm gonna stick with that 1/8 inch. Um, you can see in like the little corners. We'll have to get in there with like a little chisel, clean that up, maybe along some of the straight line, like along some of the straight lines, maybe clean it up with a chisel, get it dead straight. I was kind of just doing this in a quick hurry to see how it looks, but obviously on the actual piece, we will take our sweet time. Alright, so I just want to show a little quick progress here. So that's that first letter. Like I said, what we'll end up having to do is possibly go in there, clean up some of these fine lines, see if my OCD kicks in, and I really got to clean that up. But I'll go through, go ahead and do all this main stuff. Where it's going to get real fun and squirrely is when we get to under this fine lettering. And yeah, tree is definitely going to be a fun one also. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and see how ambitious I get tonight, hammer away on that, and we'll see how it looks later. Alright, so not a lot of progress so far. Just want to show how it's kind of starting to go. Everything's a learning curve. On this particular one, this is the first time I've done a lot of work with that actual straight bit. Normally I'm using like a pencil, real fine bit. With this, I found it actually easier. I did it on these two, where I actually took my X-Acto knife, got rid of the tape first, and then used that edge as like my guideline. And for cleaning out and just ease of doing it, that worked better. So I'm going to go ahead and, at least for these main big letters, I'm going to go ahead and X-Acto those out. Probably this also. And like I said, it'll be a little different. With the fine stuff, we're going to use the pencil point on that, and we'll go from there. Alright, I am really happy with how that turned out. It's a good cutoff point. It's about midnight right now, so I'm gonna go get some rest and we'll kick this thing back off tomorrow. Alright, day 3. Let's get this thing going again. Layla, what do you think? Alright, day 3. Let's keep this project going. What do you think, Layla? Yeah, you're gonna sleep. Alright, like I said, back at it here. Like I said, today I think I'm gonna work on doing some of the fine lettering up here. Maybe do a little bit on the tree. Usual. We'll see how froggy we get. Alright, I ended up deciding to go ahead and just cut out this entire stencil, the tree, this. The only thing I'm not going to do are these fine letters. So yeah, we're going to see how that works out. We're going to go with that. All right, so far so good. Like I said, we got to go back in right here where the lettering gets a little thinner. Go back up and clean this up. This is going to be our spike bit, I guess you want to call it, but I like a pencil bit basically. But it's also what I'm going to use to go ahead and start doing the fine lettering. And I'm going to try and do something where I'm almost doing like a pattern on this tree where I'm like coming across, I think, not just hogging all this material out. See how it looks. If worse comes to worse, I'll just clean it all out. So we'll go ahead and start doing that. And yep. All right, great progress. Everything is routed out. Hard telling on these small letters right now. I'm gonna go ahead and pull all this tape, get it cleaned up. I gotta go out to my barn, get my air compressor, blow this out, and see where we're at and see what little minute fixes we got to do. All right, I haven't even taken the air compressor to it yet, but got all the tape off, took a pick, kind of cleaned out some of the stuff, but I am really happy with how this turned out. Like I said, I'm going to take the air compressor to it tomorrow. It's already midnight. I want to go get a little bit of sleep. But eventually, like I said, it's I almost wish I could leave it like this, but to make it really pop, we're going to end up painting this in, sanding over this all, and then sealing it over. I'm aiming for it to be like a sign for outside of a shop, so I'm probably going to seal it with something that can withstand the weather a little bit. Like I said, this is Osage orange, so it can withstand the outside pretty much on its own. It's got a lot of natural oils and that in it, make it bug repellent, really weather resistant. I have stuff sitting in a wood pile of mine that's been sitting there for 4 or 5 years that looks like I cut it just the other day. So but yeah, we'll get going on it again tomorrow, hopefully finish it up. I want to get this out to him. Who knows, maybe we'll get him out to him by Christmas here, but yeah. All right, back at it. Everything's touched up, done. I've gone through, cleaned this out, blown out all the wood chips. I was going back and forth trying to make up my mind. I'm actually texting with my friend Mason, trying to make up my mind on what I wanted to do. Wasn't letting him know it's going to be a surprise. That it's actually for him, because I was sending him pictures of this tester that I was doing. So I think this is what we're going to do. We're going to go with the black. Really makes it pop out. Especially, hopefully it'll be a sign hanging outside of his shop, so I want this to be able to be noticed from a while and not have to be, a couple feet from it or that. And I'm going to tape this back off a little bit. The reason I pulled the other tape off, and I'm going to tape it again, when I routed it out, there's tons of wood chips stuck on the tape. I didn't want to paint it and then in turn have the edges be real rough, so I'm gonna just kind of paint around this stuff, spray it black, and then we'll sand it all back down, blow that off, and then we're just gonna put a coat of finish on it and it'll be ready to go. All right, got her all painted up, all taped up. Like I said, I'm not going to worry about all the stuff in here, because ultimately once I'm done giving it the rattle can treatment here, I'm going to go over it. Then we're going to go over it with sandpaper, give it the final coat before we kind of put some kind of sealer over top of it. So let's get some rattle can action going. All right, got the first coat thrown down. You can see in where the cuts are, it's soaking it up just because of that exposed grain. So I'm gonna let this tack up for a little while here. Come back in about an hour, throw a little second coat on, and then call it a night. And tomorrow come back, like I said, sand this all down, and then we'll be ready to finish her up. All right, my patience got the better of me. Had everything painted, had it done, sanded it, then realized I forgot to shoot a video of it. But I mean, all we had to do was sand it down. So let's see what it looks like. Boom. Super pumped how this thing turned out. So like I said, sanded it all down. Love how this turned out. The edges are super clean. Love it. I gotta blow it back out. A little bit of dust in it, but so only thing left to do actually is, I don't know, I was waiting to see how everything laid out on this. Why I didn't do it is I'm gonna go ahead and clean these edges off, just so everything's so neat, nice and neat. On the edge it's still kind of got the live edge look, but we're gonna go ahead and leave that, so when it's hanging as a sign it looks good like that. But yeah, the edges, because I still got a little bit of planing chip on there, just to clean it up a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. All right, got the edges all cut up. Now the only thing we have to do is, if he's gonna hang this as a sign, is we're gonna measure over from each edge, thinking about 2 inches, and we'll tap in for these eyelets, have it set up, and then I actually have some other pieces here. You can get these at Home Depot. Those eyelets are going to go on here. I want to give them away. I'm thinking what would be really cool is I gotta see if I got some laying around in my old shed, is for him to hang it instead of like just chain, is like some actual like chains for the motorcycle would be a really sweet way of hanging it. So we're gonna see about going about doing that. You know who's open for business? This guy. Boom. Okay. I love the natural finish of this Osage orange and the sign, so for the finish I'm going to apply, I don't want to change this much at all if I can. So I'm going to be going with Minwax makes a, definitely need something for the outdoor, even though like I said, the Osage orange does great for bugs, sealing its own self, but we're going to put something for the outdoors here. We're going to use this Helmsman Spar urethane. Big thing about trying to keep the Osage to stay this color is trying to keep the sunlight out. So, you know, this has the UV repellent in it. Really try and keep this looking like it will. Hope, you know, depending on where it's at, it should do it well on its own anyways. But so I'm going to go ahead and apply that. We're going to, you know, I'm going to seal the edges. You want to seal as much of this off to protect it from the weather and that. But like I said, the wood does a great job on its own too, but a little extra help won't hurt. All right, spar urethane applied, rubbed it down. I know some people like to use a brush. Personally, I keep a lot of old socks around. I wear the heels out of a sock. I keep those. Rub everything down, make sure I keep any lint off of it, but we're gonna let that set overnight. I mean, they recommend about 4 hours before you could recoat, like after a light sanding, but I'll let it sit overnight. It's already 12:30, so it's tomorrow. Let that set. Tech tip, well, a couple. Always keep lots of disposable nitrile gloves around, especially dealing with stuff like that. Another thing that works really well when applying different finishes. So I got ones marked spar urethane, shellac. If you have the old tube sock, take part of the old tube sock, ball it up, shove it inside the other one, maybe twist tie about it. You make like a little daubing ball. You'll kind of see like what I have in here. Store them inside of a jar. And guess what? They won't dry up. Last time I used that one was a couple months ago. Every time you pull it back out, it's still pretty freshy. You know, you wait a long year or so like that, you might not have the same luck, but just makes it nice. And you're not wasting stuff, throwing it in the trash, ends up in a landfill. And it's already pre-soaked, so you don't have to burn up a bunch of your urethane or material getting it soaked to apply it. And voila, 2 coats later of the spar urethane, and this is the finished project. Didn't change the coloration too much. Actually, I was kind of surprised at how much the Osage orange actually soaked up the urethane. In between, used a 400 grit sanding pad, kind of brushed it up just so the second coat really sticks to it. Obviously recommend gloves so you're not getting that stuff in contact with your skin too much. Just it makes for an easier cleanup. But yeah, so only thing left to do is wrap this thing up in some bubble wrap and ship this off to California. And it'll be editing this video, and then this will be the hopefully first of many. So we will go from there. Talk to you guys later. And one quick additional thing, if I didn't mention it before, I'm going to give him specific installation instructions. But I think this thing, especially being for a motorcycle repair shop, that I want him to use old chain to use this to hang. I used particular clips where you should be able to put right to like a 520 chain or something, hang that down. I think that would look really slick. But yeah, we'll see how it looks.